last strategy I'm going to mention in my initial set of strategies is user acceptance testing. And I picked this particular picture from Iron Man 2 because whenever I think of user acceptance testing, I think of this scenario from a movie where the generals say, well, is the semi-autonomous droid army done? You say, yes, absolutely. Why don't you go ahead and test it out? At that moment, you know that the movie is about to blow most of its pyrotechnics budget because something's going to go horribly wrong with the semi-autonomous droid army. They just never work right in movies. So user acceptance testing is telling people, hey, we've got this software, why don't you try it out and see how it works? And hopefully you don't have actual armament on your software, but you are exposing your users to some amount of problems. So the main places this is used is in Agile, where the customer is actually sitting right next to you, hopefully, or at least virtually sitting right next to you in some manner. The other one that I've seen that uses this a lot is the idea, and there's not really a formal term for this, so I call it customer responsiveness, but it's the idea that we're not going to worry about bugs because our customers will tell us when there's problems, and our customer support team will field those problems, and then they'll tell us about them and we'll fix them. And our customers are really tolerant of problems when they get out in the field. As I said, no one's going to own up to that approach, but I'm calling it customer responsiveness, meaning we are really quick to respond to problems, and that's where our focus is going to be, so that we're constantly releasing very, very quickly. So, the number one strength is the people who are deciding what's important and what's valuable about a product are the people who are actually using it, and that's obviously really important. You want to make sure that it's not just hypothetical, hey, I don't think this is going to work right when people use it, or I don't think anyone's going to understand this. This is real things people are confused about in the field. And that's valuable. Another one, you're bringing in fresh minds. Just as with the objective outsiders who are insiders for the gatekeepers, you have here people who are literally outsiders, and so they haven't had any part of your thinking, and they can be completely new, fresh minds to bring your project to maybe see things that you had as assumptions that you never really realized were assumptions. And then the last one's something that I don't think happens in many places quite enough, which is developers interacting with domain experts. Usually, your customer or your user is someone who knows what they're trying to do very, very well. And developers sometimes got a third-hand explanation of what this person's going to be trying to do or what they're going to be doing with it. So being able to actually speak to people, especially face-to-face, who are actually going to use your software and how they're going to use it is huge. And this approach really dives into that. But there's some weaknesses. The first one is buyers are liars. People are going to come in and tell you, I want you to build this. And you're going to say, okay, and you're going to build it. And they're going to say, did I say that? I meant this. And that's going to happen all the time. And so, because the people are external and because they're paying you, a lot of times, to give another example, there's a person I tend to go out to eat with who likes to feel like the waiter or waitress is kind of their personal servant. They're always saying, well, can you go fix this? Hey, this spot is dirty. Hey, I need you to send this back. It's cold. It's really uncomfortable to sit with these people and have a meal with them. Sometimes some clients are like that. Hey, I'm paying you to build this software, so if I say it's green, it's going to be green. And that's not really a fun experience. But sellers are too. If the reality is that you can't actually support that feature because you have some critical hardware problems that you don't really want to talk about, you're going to talk around the reason why that feature wasn't implemented or why you decided to side table it. You're not really going to tell them these things. And in the end, both of these things compounded mean that you're not really having a very good communication because these people are outsiders and there's just a difference there. There's always going to be a line. The other one is, in this model, there's nobody who's inside saying, hey, we should make this better. A lot of times when a customer or a client complains about something, it's really egregious. But there's other things that are just background noise of problems or awkward situations that maybe they don't come to the level of actually complaining about. They probably, I don't want to worry about complaining about that. I'm not going to bother them with that. It's just too trivial. Well, somebody inside might realize, well, they could change that with just 2 lines of CSS. We should just change it. And if there's no one doing that inside, and these people, because of this whole process, on one side I mentioned the extreme, let me push for all kinds of change. On the other end, you can have people who just are reticent to ask for change, and then you're not improving it, and they're unhappy with it, but they can't really tell you why or don't really want to. And the last thing I think may be something that most of you have experience with this approach if you've used it, which is you're spending a lot of time building demos, but not a lot of time actually building a product that is actually going to be used by anyone. I know the biggest place I saw this was in the games industry. where they would spend a lot of time getting ready for E3 or GDC or some kind of publisher meeting. And so they would just slap some art together and kind of hook it together and make sure no user ever touched it, because if they did, it would all fall apart. And you can have a lot of things where you're faking data on the back end, or maybe you're doing things just to make sure the customer sees that you're making progress. But really, the progress is pretty shallow, and things behind the scenes are much worse. So those are some of the problems with UAT. Now, every one of these three strategies is totally viable. There are companies who use it and do wonderful things with it. When I say these are weaknesses, these are things that are kind of like anti-patterns. You could implement it in a way that accentuates the weaknesses, or you can implement it in a way that accentuates the strengths. But if you're going to sit down and say, well, we need to fix our quality, or we need to improve our quality, then the first thing you need to figure out is, what is it you're trying to do? When you say, I want to improve quality, what on earth are you talking about? So, looking back on my liberal arts education, we talked about ancient Greeks. Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle would not agree on much. But there are a few things they would agree on, and one of them is the idea that everything has a nature. And to be good, you need to be fulfilling your nature with excellence. And the Greek word for excellence was arete. So if you have a chair, the chair has a nature, and there's several things about the chair, the most important of which is someone should sit on it. And if sitting on it is done in a really, really good way, then that chair has arete. And if the chair really is awkward and difficult to sit on, it's really uncomfortable, then it probably doesn't have as much arete. And that's the core concept here. So applying that to software. Software is a tool, and that means that it's something that people are going to use to solve problems or achieve goals. And what I'm calling the use of software to solve problems or achieve goals is its value, meaning that's what people are going to take out of it. When they say, I'm going to spend money on something, usually they're doing it to achieve that value. I want to do something with this. There's some goal to it. On the other hand, there's also quality. And the quality of software is based on the degree to which it's either elegant or avoids frustration. The more frustrating software is, the less quality it has. And the more elegant it is, the more quality it has. So lots of different software can achieve value without having any quality. And I'm just going to click these slides through. I'm not really going to say anything. But hopefully it's obvious that you can build something that's very, very useful, but it's not elegant. And it's really frustrating, but it does what you want it to do, so you just live with it. So then the question becomes, well, if that's the case, what are the things that are interfering with the value or the quality of your software? And usually when we talk about that, we're talking about a bug. Now, I'm defining this way because I think it's useful to get away from the idea that a bug is something that doesn't meet a design specification, or that a bug is something that was unintentional. Because you could meet the spec, you could intend for it to work that way, and it could be valueless, and it could be completely inelegant, and it could be really frustrating. But you've done everything correctly. But that didn't really get you to anywhere where you can actually accomplish something. That's not going to get anything that someone wants to buy or spend money on. So a bug goes beyond that. It's anything that's preventing you from having value or quality. Now, anybody can have a different opinion of all of these things. Also, now value sometimes can be subjective, but usually, does it accomplish this task, yes or no? Most people could probably agree on that. Quality, is it elegant? Is it frustrating? Everyone's going to have a different idea of what that means. People are going to have conversations about it, and they'll never agree. So, in the end, somewhere, someone is going to hate your work. When you finish, no matter how much work you spend on it, no matter how hard you work, someone is going to say, God, that software sucks. And that's just something that we all have to live with in any project we do ever.